Backstage, Sean Mooney then introduces the build-up to the main event before interviewing Sgt Slaughter and General Adnan. Sgt Slaughter suggests that during the match he might get counted out or disqualified, but that Hogan wouldn't win the title. Any thoughts on the backstage promo here?
Slaughter's face is incredible. He's just got a great chin, and he uses his greatest skill and his greatest asset, which is his chin, masterfully in this promo. He's sweating a lot, considering he's not even started wrestling. And the main thing that really struck me was how many times he says Hulk Hogan. I didn't count, but if I had, I'm guessing I'd need more fingers than I've got, and I've got the full complement, and probably more toes than I've got. He says Hulk Hogan so many times that I think he might be fighting Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, it's standard. It's nothing special. But interestingly, again, not really very much mention of the whole Gulf War and the conflict and Saddam Hussein and all of that stuff, which is probably partially because the war was over by this point. The war had finished about 6 weeks after this program had begun, and WWF were just kind of like, I don't know, clinging to the coattails of the peace treaty.
It's like WWE are so behind the times they can't even time up a war properly. The war's gone for ages. I like the fact that Sgt Slaughter calls Sean Mooney a piece of human waste at the beginning of it. I like the promo when it shows the video package in the build-up to the match. That T-shirt lights up quickly, doesn't it?
I thought that.
Sets Hogan's T-shirt on fire. Like, it must have been soaked in petrol. It must have been absolutely soaking. It really lights up.
We have a backstage interview by Gene Oakland with Hulk Hogan, which during this interview we're shown more build up to the Slaughter Hogan match with Sgt Slaughter and General Adnan attacking Hulk Hogan, during which Pat Patterson appears wearing a lovely bright blue shirt with white trainers. I don't know if you noticed that, but I found that very, very interesting. And it's a relatively straightforward Hogan promo. Old man, any thoughts?
So the video package has General Adnan taunting Hogan with the title, which is upside down, which, like, just these little things. The main thing, because this is the Hogan promo we've heard a million times, is at the end, Hogan poses, right? And he makes two incredible noises that it's like, "Argh!" And it's obviously noises he must make from the effort of posing. And Mean Gene is clearly really caught off guard by him. So he does a real quick, a quick turn to Hogan. Hogan's ripped off his T-shirt at this point, and he seems to find another one. By the time he comes down to the ring, he's got a T-shirt on. This is peak Hogan. The commentators, I think, allude to the fact that Hogan has said during this that if he wins the match, that the Iraqi people will immediately surrender, which I think, even by how much Hogan evidently thinks of himself, is probably a bit much.
Yeah, also, they had done. I mean, the Iraqi government at least had already done by this point, some weeks before, so it's not much of a boast, quite frankly.
Do you think that it was the threat of Hogan beating Sgt Slaughter? They were like, we can't have this.
Who knows, mate? Maybe.
Well, he hates Sgt Slaughter, evidently. Keeps calling him brother. And at one point, he goes on about new technology, where he's talking about, I've got the new technology to beat Sgt Slaughter.
Yes.
I'm like, what's he got? Is he coming down in a robot? Or is he, got I don't know, like, what's going on? What do you mean, new technology? It's never explained.
I think the less about this is explained, the better. The three co-hosts of WrestleMania then are introduced to the crowd. Regis Philbin, Marla Maples, and Alex Trebek come out to the ring. Trebek takes guest ring announcer duties. Marla Maples is on guest timekeeper duties, and Regis Philbin sits down with Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon to join them for commentary. The WWF title match between Slaughter and Hogan lasts 20 minutes and ends when Hulk Hogan hits a big boot, then the leg drop for the pin, and becomes the new champion. Tom, let's start with you, since I start with Old Man for the other big match of the night. So let's start with you.
For a start, Marla's bell ringing has got left something to be desired. We can tell she's not a professional bell ringer because it was not very good. This match was really weird. For a start, it's an odd Hogan match because he's in the ascendancy for a lot of it, which is really unusual for a Hogan match. You're not used to seeing that. So you get to see him actually do some kind of offense that you don't usually get to see him do. He goes up to the top rope at one point. Admittedly, he gets thrown off in the classic Ric Flair spot, but yeah, he does a lot of moves that you don't really see him do very often. He does like a couple of suplexes, I think, in it, and stuff you don't really necessarily associate with Hogan. Sgt Slaughter hits Hogan with a jacket-covered chair, which is quite a nice touch. So they obviously haven't got the jacket off the chair in time, but it was quite good. I mean, the crowd are really into it, despite the fact that Sgt Slaughter was rubbish and the war's over, as you said. And they go mad for the the classic Hogan comeback, and big boot and leg drop, kind of win at the end. It's your kind of standard fair Hulk Hogan main event, but slightly different.
Yeah, that jacket covered chair shot is about the weakest chair shot in the history of the world. It's absolutely dreadful, and made worse by the fact that the jacket's on there to cushion the blow even further.
Yeah.
But yeah, I take your point. Oh man,
it's long and it's not very good, really. But it's intriguing because of what Tom's just said, in that it's kind of a flip on the normal Hogan trope. There's a lovely bit at the start where Sgt Slaughter complains about a hair pull, and Gorilla Monsoon says, Slaughter complained about a hair pull. He doesn't have any hair to pull, which I took a bit personally, but I was like, you know what? For a joke, you can have that.
Well, also, it's very hypocritical because nor does Monsoon or Hogan, for that matter.
That's a good point.
So that no one's got any hair for anybody to pull.
Yeah.
Hogan's still got that little bit in the back, haven't they?
True.
You can grab onto if in an emergency, in case of emergency, break glass or pull back of Hogan's hair.
The rules are not enforced as Hogan matches aren't. There's chair shots, there's choking, there's no count-outs. The rules are an absolute nonsense. There is a bit where Hogan is in the Boston Crab. I must say, not a Rick Martel style Boston Crab. It's not Slaughter's best work. Well, actually, to be fair, based on this match, it probably is. But he's got him in it. Hogan is literally, I reckon, half an inch from the ropes. Yeah, but because he's a pro, he stays in the hold for about 3 minutes and then grabs the ropes, silly sod.
Also, on that point, Regis Philbin is like just exposing the whole deal because he's like, why didn't he just grab the ropes? Why didn't he just grab the ropes? He says it about 7 times.
Yeah.
Well, at least Regis knows at least he knows what he's coming into, I suppose.
Totally.
Again, like you said earlier, professional.
There's a bit where Slaughter does a top rope stomp type thing to the back of Hogan, and he just wipes sweat and flicks it off onto Earl Hebner, which I thought was a lovely heel touch. And then it's kind of done, like Hogan tears a flag to pieces, which I just think is completely unnecessary at one point. And Slaughter does the thing where after the 3 count, he then kicks out. And so, what are you doing? What are you doing, Sarge?
I've got to believe that was a thing that he was told to do, that kick out, because I think that they wanted to extend the Hogan Slaughter stuff for a little while longer. They obviously main event SummerSlam with Hogan Warrior versus Slaughter, General Adnan and Colonel Mustafa, and I can only imagine they thought, well, this is the only way to keep him relatively strong is to have him kick out straight after the 3 count. That's the only explanation I've got for that. This is where I really struggle with the show because you're right, different pattern than a normal Hulk Hogan match. He gets a really long babyface shine period at the beginning of this match, and Slaughter, I think, does really well during this match. He throws himself around as much as he can. You got to remember, I think the toils of age back in the old days just were much more difficult to overcome than they are now, and Slaughter is 43 by this point. He's been wrestling for about 20 years, so he's well towards the end of his career. And I've seen quite a few Sgt Slaughter matches from the late 70s, early 80s. He is better than most of the other wrestlers around at that period. Certainly around better than most of the big heel guys around at that period. And here he's just quite old, but he still does his best to put Hogan over. They have the rare sight of Hogan busted open, which again I think was a way to sort of cover for some of the deficiency in the quality of this match, because it was never going to be great. Also, I thought the bit where you were talking about earlier on about the things they were doing that were the referee allowed to slide, I think this is where there was something that they did quite clever during this whole show, which was earlier on we talked about the backstage promo that Sgt Slaughter and General Adnan cut, and I mentioned the fact that Slaughter says he might get counted out or disqualified so that Hogan wouldn't win the championship. I think the idea was the referee was being more lenient because he knew that was the case, and I think that the commentator should have done a better job of tying that in, because that would have made a lot more sense to me. They just didn't really cover it. And look, I kind of want to be fair here, because I think this is not as good in terms of what they actually do as a match we slated on this show a few weeks back, Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman. I think what Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman did in their match was better than what's here, except the only difference is in that match the fans didn't care. In this match the fans absolutely care. It's a really good example of where actually you take something that on face value isn't as good, but then adds the reaction and the fact that people care about it, and it's in my mind it's about as good as that match as a consequence. It's fine. It's exactly why I found this match a chore, because I knew this was what comes at the end of it, and I'm not a big fan of it, but it wasn't bad. It was what it was, and there's not a lot more I can say about it, to be honest.
A quick note on the crowd. I'm pretty sure they're still celebrating now. Oh, the finish, they're going absolutely. When Hogan whips out Old Glory, which isn't a euphemism, oh, my word. My word.
I love the fact that throughout the match, Bobby Heenan starts promoting this party that he's going to be having on Tuesday night on NBC in Las Vegas. He keeps coming on about it, and there's a bit where he keeps asking Regis if he can come to the party, and he's like, no, I don't think I can make it, but Kathy Lee might be available. And Bobby Heenan goes, no, we're sold out.
There is a funny thing about this actually, because Bobby Heenan has to kind of, I don't know, balance his support for Slaughter with almost the suggestion that he's not patriotic. And at one point, Regis calls him out on it and says, "Oh, is this guy for Slaughter? I can't believe this guy's for Slaughter." And Bobby has to kind of make an excuse for why he doesn't like Hogan, as opposed to liking Sergeant Slaughter. It's a weird balance, yes, to strike. It's kind of odd.